Hello. So in this session, we are going to look at monopolistic competition. That is a market structure where there is some degree of monopoly as well as some degree of competition. So in other words, what we see is a large number of firms but are selling differentiated products. Okay, so let's begin. So we can start by first defining or describing what monopolistic competition is, which is simply a market structure in which many firms sell a differentiated product, and the entry into the market as well as the exit out of the market is relatively easy. So it is easy for firms to enter the market if there are abnormal profits being enjoyed, and also easy to exit the market if there are losses being made in the market. But it should be noted that the products being sold are not the same. Okay, so let's look at the characteristics that there are a large number of firms or sellers and buyers in the industry. And secondly, the firms sell similar but differentiated products. For example, you can talk of washing paste. So you have Boom and Bullet. So the product is able to perform the same task, but they are differentiated. So the way you would see Boom and the way you would see Bullet, the two are not they are not the same per se, but they are similar. They are all washing pests. Then they may have some elements of price control. So because of differentiated products, meaning each firm can have control over its price for a given commodity that it is selling. And then entry and exit from the industry is relatively easy. Then consumers and producers have imperfect knowledge about the activities of the market. Okay, so let's describe the nature of the demand curve under monopolistic competition. That the firm's demand curve is highly elastic but not perfect. So as opposed to perfect competition where they sell the homogeneous products, here the firms are selling similar products but they are not perfect substitutes. As such, the demand curve is not perfectly elastic. And because the firms are not selling the firms are selling similar items, it means that then they have some degree of perfect competition, some degree of competition, and the deviating away from monopoly, meaning that the demand curve is more elastic compared to the demand curve we observed under monopoly. Then it is more elastic than the monopoly demand curve because the sellers have many rivals producing close substitutes. But it should be noted that these are not perfect substitutes. Therefore, it is less elastic than pure monopoly because the sellers produce products that are differentiated from their rivals. The profit maximizing rule still maintains that we under perfect monopolistic competition, profit is maximized where marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. And from there, we see that the price they charge would be on the demand curve, meaning that the structure of monopolistic competition is similar to the one we observed under monopoly, but the conditions are different. Therefore, we would see that if we go to the long run, firms will earn zero economic profit or simply normal profit. That is, they will just break even. They will produce where the triple condition holds, where they will produce where price is equal to the average cost. And therefore, we will see some changes in their demand curve. Okay, so it should be noted, therefore, that most monopolistic competitive firms will experience break-even in the long run because all the firms will be earning normal profits. So in reality, some firms experience profits as they are able to distinguish themselves from the others and build a loyal customer base. Others can even be making losses and even choose to continue operating in the long run. This is because probably they will want to continue with their customer loyal base, and as well as maybe to discover other items that they can produce in order for them to continue operating as a business. Let's look at the implications for in terms of a graphical illustration. So with cost and revenue on the vertical axis and output on the horizontal axis, then we have our marginal cost that is upward sloping, and our average cost that is also slopes down and then starts to rise, which is a U shape. So the marginal cost and average cost will be the same, will have the same shape. However, because the products are differentiated in some way, the firm will only be able to sell extra output by lowering the price. So then with our average revenue that is downward sloping, the demand curve facing the firm will be downward sloping, and this represents the average revenue, which is the revenue earned from the sales that the firm make. And then the marginal revenue is below the average revenue curve. So with the profit maximizing rule, that we maximize profit where marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, and then pick a price on the demand curve, that is the price level where marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, the firm can maximize profit. Let's assume that this price is equal to 1/4. Now there, if we pick the associated average cost like we did under Monopoly, it means then we are able to pick the profit for the imperfect competition, or simply the monopolistic competition structure, and this is abnormal profit. So this abnormal profit is what will attract a lot of firms to join the industry, because they also want to take part of this profit. Now, if firms enter the market, it means that the demand curve then will shift downwards, and so will the marginal revenue curve, until we reach a point where the average cost will be tangent to the demand curve, and that will be in the long run. So we assume that the firms produce where marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, and at this output level, the average revenue is greater than the average cost, and the firm then makes abnormal profit. So we see therefore that we are in the short run, and if we move away from that, we see that because there is relative freedom of entry and exit into the market, new firms are likely to enter the market, and because of that, we will have implications seen on the demand curve. And the demand curve will shift downwards to average revenue 1, and so will the marginal revenue to marginal revenue 1. Now you will see that with this new average revenue curve, our average cost curve here is tangent to the demand curve, the new demand curve, and therefore it shows that if we pick the output level where marginal revenue equal to marginal cost and going up, we will be making normal profits, or the firms will be breaking even in the long run. So if we do that, we will see that the output level will reduce at that new equilibrium point, and then we see a price being picked there where average revenue is equal to average cost, and that is the long run position. Therefore, in the long run, we see that firms are making normal profit. So this being the case, then it means that all firms that were making profits, for firms that were making profits, there were new firms that were attracted into the market, and they drove the profit away. And if the firms were making losses, we would have seen the demand curve shifting up, as well as the marginal revenue following suit, and then the losses will be eliminated. Let's look at some of the features that stand out under monopolistic competition, and we see that this market structure may have a large number of firms in the industry, but the industry is mainly dominated by the larger firms. And out of this, we are able to measure the concentration ratio depending on whether you want to get the 4th, the 5th, and so on. So let's assume a concentration ratio of say a 4 for 4 firms. So concentration ratio, which is the proportion of the total market sales held by the top say 3, top 4 or top 5, can be calculated and then see how much of the sales is being gathered by the larger firms. For example, a 4 firm concentration ratio of 75% would mean that the top 4 firms account for 75% of all the sales in the industry. So if you are given say 5 firms and then you are told to find the concentration ratio, you will get the total sales and then get the percentage, and that percentage would mean that is the percentage of or the share of those firms from all the sales in the industry. For example, if we look at the music sales, and then we see that from here we have independent sales, which is covering up 25%, Sony with 14%, Wama with 11%, BMG with 11%, Universal 27%, and EMI with 12%. And from that, we see that the music industry has 5 firms concentration ratio of 75%, which means that 75% of the sales in this industry is covered by 5 firms. And you will see that independent make up 25% of the market, but under it you may find that there are many firms which constitute independent. Okay, so with that you can also get the 3 firm concentration ratio, or even the 4 firm concentration ratio, and see what is the volume of sales driven by those firms. So that's it so far about monopolistic competitions. If you have questions, please send an email to moawelias@gmail.com. Bye bye.